Let's talk about a powerful resource that many copywriters forget. This resource is so powerful that it helps you complete more sales copy, write more lead generation pieces, and ultimately put these materials in front of prospects so you can increase the number of clients. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. What is this powerful resource and how can you use it in your copywriting business or marketing agency? First off, I want to share with you a story about a small group of individuals I worked with back in the day when I was at a company doing computer services, but I actually worked with these individuals because they were the production team for proposals, marketing materials, and other presentations. Now, this group included individuals that did drafting, graphic artists, writers, and other individuals whose primary purpose was to take raw ideas and concepts from engineers and turned it into competent marketing materials, presentations, and more. And what was so valuable about this particular group is that you could bring in a stack of paper and hand-drawn designs, blueprints, and sticky notes all over everything, sit down with them for 5 or 10 minutes, and they would be able to produce multiple types of items out of the materials you brought. So for example, if you were working on a proposal and you had business development professionals and engineers that would produce a specific deliverable, you have a draft project plan, they could take that material and sit down with a team and produce a multi-page proposal. They could produce flyers related to the product that was being designed. They could produce case studies that were the result of the previous work being done. And they would do this from what looked like pretty much back of napkin notes. Now, they'd also provide feedback, of course, on how to better interact with them. But ultimately, what this group did was they were an in-house publishing group that helped the company facilitate clear communications. Now, you might be saying, well, I don't have a huge company and I don't really care what the excuses are. To be a more productive copywriter, to be a better marketer, to be a subject matter expert, you need at least an editorial assistant who will help you produce materials. Now, what this company was able to do is create a backlog of hundreds of millions of dollars in government contracts, as well as support $20 to $30 million in government contracts each year. This small office didn't have a lot of people, and frankly, they weren't being paid very much. But again, they were specialists in what they do. You could hand a pile of drawings, and they would produce a PowerPoint deck. You could handle them notes or editing on a document, and they can get it typed back up in the system. There was a computer network in place that allowed them a central storage place for a library of previous materials, working documents, and then, of course, a means of publishing. And then, of course, they also had copiers and printing machines. Now, this was back in the 1990s, and you might be saying, well, Justin, why do I need all that if I can do my own PowerPoints, if I can do my own articles, if I can do my own writing? Well, yes, you can do your own writing. In some places, it is the expectation that you'll just use Microsoft Office and you'll create brilliant presentations. But the truth of it is, there's a time and a cost differential. See, these folks in this small office were able to do this work without the specialized engineering rates. So the engineer is getting paid $88 an hour. The people in the publishing office or the in-house printing office, they were getting paid $20 an hour. There's another factor as well. The people in the publishing offices could not do direct for client work. They weren't engineers. They weren't software developers. They weren't the people doing the specialized work. So they cannot do that work. So that's just the way it comes out. It's a separation of duties. Also, it provided a second view of the content. The engineers could not speak in a way that customers could understand. So as an intermediary, this in-house publishing group, in fact, made it easier to communicate with customers, made work more clear, and then sort of translated some of the difficult technical information. So as you're probably seeing, that the reason why this group was so valuable to the corporation is the same reason why you as a copywriter, you as a marketing professional, you as a marketing agency is actually valuable to your clients. So you're providing to your clients the things that this in-house group did, but unfortunately, many of you are trying to do it all by yourself. Now, you might be saying, well, you don't have enough money to hire an assistant. And if you hired an editor to finish work, you agree with me that you'd be able to get drafts finished more quickly. You agree with me that you'd be able to get second hand and fresh eyes to look at your sales copy so that you'd write more interesting and valuable sales copy. But again, you just can't pay for it. Well, see, this is a chicken and the egg scenario. You could struggle and make it, have a difficulty getting out content, getting out valuable lead generation materials because you don't have the help that you need. And that would cause suffering. Or you can hire the help that you need, get out better quality, more deliberate, more focused content, and still suffer, but ultimately have a faster path to the results that you're looking for. Now, there actually is a 6-step sequence which you can use to interact and work with another person. Because another objection I hear people say is they don't know how to work with an outside group. And this is a fact. Very often I would have to help the engineers get the drawings and materials and the right data format so that they could take it down to the publishing group so that the publishing group could even do anything with it. And in cases where there are CAD materials, so computer-aided drafting, those materials could take up a lot of time and speed. This is the 1990s. The network wasn't all that great. We were using 10 megabyte networking. But my point being is that that's okay. It's okay if you have technical challenges, because a lot of copywriters who I share this advice with, they say, look, I can't find anybody in my area to work with. I don't want them in my office. And how do I get the data back and forth to them? Okay, well, there's a way of doing that. Today, you can use cloud services. You can use SharePoint sites. You can use a lot of different things. So that's not really a valid excuse, but it's an excuse that I understand. The fact of the matter is if someone else can write or proof your materials at even a 60% efficiency, so they're not going to replace you, they're not going to be as good as you, but within 60% of the value that you can deliver, they can help give you another perspective for the copy and materials that you have so that at least you can make sure it's easy to understand for somebody else. They can also finish doing the things such as formatting, delivering back and forth to clients. They can gather additional materials. So for example, if you start on a sales letter for a client and you have questions, you can give a list of questions to your assistant and they can go to the client and get those questions answered. They can also tell you whether the questions are detailed enough to have useful results, kind of a sounding board. And you can do this with Cub copywriters, an actual editor. That's been most valuable. I've actually worked outside in my own agency, worked with former journalists. So when you're writing press releases, having actual real journalists look them over and give you feedback is very useful to writing a press release that another journalist or a publisher would pick up and publish in their periodical. More recently, I've worked with editorial assistants that didn't really have a good command of English, but what they were able to do is to make sure that if they could understand it, then I was confident and my audience could understand it. So they would look through the materials, and here's one of the methods that we use. They look through the materials, and if a sentence was difficult to understand, they would highlight it in yellow. If the sentence was completely incorrect, hard to believe, difficult to read, and this is not grammar. This is actually, they read the sentence, they have no idea what they're saying, or the paragraph, and they have no idea what it says. They would highlight it in red. They would use the comments in the margins to ask questions. So maybe they understood the sentence, but they didn't understand why the sentence was in there, or they needed additional context to know why that sentence was valuable. They would highlight it and then put a comment in the column. Now, this alone helped me get a second opinion on copy very quickly. It helped me identify challenges the audience had. And even though it's not part of the assignment, I very often get back from a person something highlighted in green. And by the way, we use the yellow, red on purpose, but I found things highlighted in green, and in the margin it says, wow, this really makes sense. This is what matters to me. Now, when I get that back, the yellow items I will clarify. The red items I will likely remove. But the green items, I want to do more of that, because if an uninformed third party reads your copy and is like, oh my gosh, this is what I want, this is how I need to go, then ultimately you know your copy's in the right place. Now, I don't want an editorial assistant to be handling grammar, to be handling layout, and to be handling those things that are not contributing to the generation of leads and the production of sales. And why is that important? Well, first off, if you just send a document to an assistant and say, hey, read this over, let me know what you think, and not give them specific instructions, they're only going to focus on the grammar because that's what's important to them. They think that matters. I had some editors that they were more just virtual assistants. They weren't actually editors. I would send them materials and they'd come back with very flowery language, or they'd say, if they say it's boring, then that's a fact. But if they say, oh, well, this could be more colorful, or we need more emotions here, or no, those are struggling fiction writers, and they are telegraphing their desire to be Hemingway or Stephen King onto my materials. I don't want that. I want easy to follow, easy to understand sales copy that gets people to raise their hand and say, I want to buy a product. I want to get involved with a service. And that's the kind of editorial assistant you want. That's why copywriters are really good, because they understand some of the copy, but again, they may not have clients. They may not be confident enough to work for somebody else, but they will certainly work for you in a capacity to help you finish materials. Now, here's the biggest problem that this solves. The biggest problem is that many copywriters and marketers write way more materials than they can ever publish. Or they fall into the content marketing scam of basically writing so much material and putting it on so many different channels that they haven't really asked for the sale. They haven't generated a lead. And so with a checklist or some kind of criteria, your assistant can ask certain things of copy and kind of give you a check before it goes out the door, so that you are writing copy that generates leads, so that you are writing copy that produces sales. Now, your editorial assistant might be the last word when it comes to copy you use for your own marketing, but you still are going to be in a position for deliverables to clients that you are the last word. And so an editorial assistant or a writing assistant in this case can help you with the interactions between clients to basically, you create the deliverable, they package it up, deliver it to the client. They might have follow-up letters. They might schedule appointments. They may do the administrative side of that material, where if they're writing an outline for your podcast, you can give them a pile of other materials, have them extract an outline, then you fill out the body of the outline, and then they finish the article for your own work. Now, you might be asking questions, well, what about them writing in your voice? That is a challenge. Sometimes they want to rewrite the voice and other things like that. But again, that checklist helps establish it. If you're interested in more details, I actually have a 6-step formula, and I would photocopy right out of this my little notebook here, because this is page P-005-10. And if you mention that reference, I'll just photocopy it out of the binder and give you some additional information about really how to hire a writing assistant and exactly what that writing assistant needs to be doing in order for you to maximize your productivity, but also be able to grow your agency, to be able to grow your size of assignments, to be able to be more effective with the skills that you have. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. We're here to help you grow your freelance copywriting business, to grow your skills as a copywriter or a marketer, to build up a 6 or 7-figure agency. You can reach us at www.adbriefings.co.uk, and we will be more than happy to answer any of your questions. If you're listening to this on Apple iTunes or any of these Google Podcasts or any of these platforms, be sure to like and subscribe. That's great feedback that helps me better serve your needs. But what's most important is if you visit my website and you ask a question, I'd be more than happy. And you'll see how my writing assistant works, because she'll actually compile those questions, go into my editorial calendar, make the matches, provide me an outline, and ultimately I can respond to you. But while they're doing that, I'm doing billable work. Can you see how productive this can be? Can you see how powerful having a writing assistant can be? I'm looking forward to your comments and questions, and I'll see you in the next podcast.